So Labour will whip its MPs to vote against an SNP motion calling for a ceasefire. Now, initially, Labour wanted an amendment in order to vote for it. Otherwise, they said they would abstain. Now, because the government has tabled their own amendment, Labour's amendment won't be heard. Labour now want the MPs to vote against the SNP, not abstain. So the SNP motion calls for the hostages to be released, a ceasefire between both sides, and a path towards a peace deal. Now, apparently sources say that Starmer was angry and said that he hated that the SNP included the term collective punishment. I mean, that is objectively correct. That's not an opinion. Israel is committing collective punishment. Now, ever since Starmer admitted on LBC that Israel had the right to cut off water, electricity from Gazans, which is a war crime, he's tried to backtrack, but I think it's clear that his original statement is actually what he believes. Now, Labour's amendment tried to make it more ambivalent, downplay Israel's role in all of this. But why did Starmer change from abstention to vote against? And I think that is because the SNP included the term collective punishment. Again, that leads me to believe that former human rights lawyer Starmer supports collective punishment. And why are Labour forcing a 3-line whip? Why not a free vote? Remember back in 2015, the debate around bombing Syria? What were Labour right figures saying? MPs must vote with their conscience. Corbyn must not whip MPs to vote against bombing innocents. This is a matter of conscience. And not only did Corbyn offer or allow a free vote, he allowed an alternative speech by Hilary Benn calling for Parliament to bomb Syria. Corbyn should have never allowed that to happen. And it was quite disgusting how everyone in Parliament was standing in applause to Hilary Benn. The whole media was saying Hilary Benn is the true opposition because he wanted to bomb Syria. Insane. But it's funny how that's changed. Those who were saying it should be a free vote back then are now the ones in control of the Labour Party. And what do they say now? Well, they're not saying it should be a free vote. And I certainly think backing a genocide should be up to MPs to freely vote on. Now, obviously, I would like to see Labour whip in favour of the SNP motion, but at least allow a free vote, not a 3-line whip against. Now, astonishingly, Labour cultists, Starmerites, have tried to accuse the SNP of cynical party politics. I think that is a disgusting thing to accuse them of, especially when its leader, Humza Yousaf, had family in Gaza. I mean, he has a personal stake in this. Yet he's playing party politics? No, it's Labour who are playing party politics. In fact, when asked what Starmer's priorities were for an incoming Labour government, what did he say? Was it to fix the NHS? To deal with the skyrocketing bills, or even peace in the Middle East, all salient issues? No. Starmer said that ousting Yousaf as PM is one of his early goals as Prime Minister. Priorities march. But also, what a strange thing to say. I mean, winning an election automatically means that if Labour wins more seats than the SNP in Scotland, then he's automatically gone. But also, why not state the priority is to kick out Sunak as Prime Minister, get rid of the Tories? Really strange. I almost think that Keir Starmer has a personal hatred for Yousaf because he's pro-Palestinian. And it sounds like Starmer gets a little emotional when it comes to calling out the crimes of Israel. Now, Starmer said he supports a permanent ceasefire, although whispers from the damage control team are trying to say his position hasn't changed. But despite this, Labour have said they support a ceasefire. Yet they've continually made excuses to not support the SNP when they call for a ceasefire. The reason why is because they don't want to bolster the SNP. That is the very definition of playing party politics. If Labour say they support a ceasefire, then surely that makes them the same as the SNP. So why not vote for it? And I think it's clear that Labour doesn't want to give the SNP any political capital, which they think will happen if they back the SNP. And as I just pointed out, Starmer's priority is to get rid of Yousaf. I mean, he's worried that supporting the SNP will hurt Labour's chances in the election. In fact, don't take my word for it. David Lammy literally said this on TV.
Could you hold your nose and vote for it if it is the best thing on the table tomorrow?
I don't want to do anything in an election year in which the Labour Party might have the privilege of serving that cuts across our ability to do that. And if you look at the detail of that SNP motion, it's not balanced. And that is the problem as I see it with the SNP.
How is that not party politics? It's putting party not just before country, but party before innocent Palestinians. Now, this tweet's from editor of the Scottish Sun, excuse me, perfectly shows how delusional people defending the Labour Party look right now. Motion Politics 101. Stick something unpalatable for your rivals in a motion they'd otherwise back. Then cry foul when they won't back it. See the SNP's collective punishment line. If SNP wanted to maximise chance of Labour backing the motion, they wouldn't have included it. I love that because it's saying, oh, the SNP shouldn't have included the very real and true line that Israel has committed collective punishment because it offends Labourites. It's really grown-up politics, isn't it? I mean, what the SNP actually should have done is deliberately watered down an amendment that it makes it acceptable for Labour to vote for. I think that says far more about the Labour Party than the SNP. And the big irony here is that people have attacked the left, have attacked the SNP over this, saying that calling for a ceasefire is pointless. Labour can't stop the fighting. This is just virtue signalling. It's the same people who expected Corbyn to push the big red stop Brexit button as opposition. Yet Corbyn offered a second referendum at the last election. I mean, what else could he have done? People today saying we need to have a second referendum, the polls have changed, we need to rejoin the EU. Well, where were you back in 2019 when there was actually a very real route to that? It's crazy. And yes, it is true that the UK government calling for a ceasefire or Labour themselves calling for a ceasefire won't materially make much of a difference in the region. However, if Labour and the SNP teamed up, this would make the government look incredibly weak. 80% of people in this country want a ceasefire. So seeing the Tories as the only party in Parliament not supporting it makes them look really, really bad. Plus, I do think this sends a very powerful message that Britain, the country that literally created Israel through the Balfour Declaration, calling for a ceasefire. I mean, the very reason Israel exists today is because of us. And if we say we should stop the fighting, call for a ceasefire and protect Palestinians, I think that is a very, very powerful message indeed. Of course, that's not going to happen because both Labour and the Tories are hungry for war and death, who don't care about Palestinian blood. But right now, the SNP are the official opposition. And you know what? Props to them. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and drop a comment. It's good for the algorithm and I'm interested in what you have to say. If you're not already subscribed, please do and hit the notification bell. You can also support this channel by becoming a member for 99p per month. And if you're feeling a little more generous, then you can support us on Patreon for £3 or £5 per month. This channel for a while has been uploading every single day and it's quite a lot of work that is still voluntary and scheduled around my paid work. But I have so much ambition, expect in the future to see more variety in content, such as interviews and Vox Pops. But I want this to be a fully fledged media organisation where not only is this my full-time job, but to have multiple people working for Turn Left. I like to see a live show in the future, more content that delves into culture, history, and much more. But that can only be done if there's money. So please, if you can, support us in any way that's in your capacity. And thank you to existing members, subscribers, and patrons. See you next time.